Please welcome to the stage C-TAC's Vice President for Community Action and Policy, Marisat Hassan.
Wow, you guys look so good out there. Give yourselves a round of applause. You look wonderful. I see why John and Bryn wanted to stay up here a little bit longer, because you guys look so great, right? You've had the opportunity today to see graphics showing our great sponsors that we have for our Leadership Summit and how they've been able to make it possible. Some of our organizations have created some brief videos for us, and so we have a couple more that we want to show to you right now. Our first is going to be from our partners and friends with VINCA, and the second from the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation. And then I'll have a third one I'll tell you about in just a couple minutes.
I am Angela Poppy Reese. I am the Chief Medical Officer at VINCA Care. VINCA Care is a supportive care company that does primarily telehealth, but some hybrid in-person and telehealth visits. And we really view ourselves as on the leading edge of helping patients through serious illness management with a focus on social determinants of health and whole person care. At VINCA Care, we truly believe that access to this type of care and health equity are primary goals that we should all be focusing on in the palliative care space, the population health space, and we view it as our mission to make sure that all patients, regardless of where they live, how they're insured, can access this care. Partnering with CAPC and C-TAC was such an easy decision for us at VINCA Care because we recognize that C-TAC and CAPC bring together policymakers, healthcare leaders, leaders from the payer space. And this is of the utmost importance for us as an organization because we know we need to work across these silos to advance equity and access for this patient population. We believe in the mission of CAPC and C-TAC, and we want to be a part of innovating around changing how healthcare in the U.S. looks as it relates to serious illness management, population health, and palliative care. These are not specialty niche fields that can be left in the realm of, say, health systems or academic medicine. I love my academic colleagues, but I think we have to learn to partner differently in communities and with payers to actually advance the mission of making sure all patients have access to good, supportive palliative care. VINCA Care has its foundations as an advanced care planning technology company. We were focused on using technology to create and share advanced care planning documents. Over time, we recognized that there was a need for clinical care that was not actually accessible to a large proportion of the US population. So through an acquisition of a clinical care organization called Resolution Care, we have become now VINCA Care, and over the last 2 years, we have expanded access to supportive care to include traditional palliative care, enhanced care management focusing on social determinants of health, and community care navigation, along with our foundational advanced care planning technology. With these 3 pillars of care, we are able to reach thousands of patients and patients who would not traditionally have access to more specialty supportive and palliative care. We are very proud of the fact that we have been able to grow and we have been able to bring this type of needed care to so many more patients across the US. And we look forward to continuing this innovation and growth to ensure that all patients have the right access to the care that they need when they need it.
Wow, that's powerful, right? And finally, a word from our platinum sponsor, Media.
The healthcare industry is rife with information that describes problems rather than solving them. Medio solves the problem of unclear or unavailable information at the most critical times. In my experience, it's the clearest and most efficient tool to perform and communicate advanced care plans when you have just seconds to make life or death decisions.
I'm Dr. Meraki, and I'm the founder and CEO of Medio. And my goal in creating Medio is to create a patient safety solution so that we can hear from the patient in real time when it matters most in providing care to prevent medical errors.
My emergency treatment choice is no CPR, DNR, and allow my natural death. Please do not transfer me to an emergency room.
Medio provides both families and physicians the ability to preemptively create a plan of care for a patient. When seconds count, we can provide the right level of care to you at the right time to ensure we're following your wishes and not ours. Nationally, we've utilized advanced directives and Pulse for years. But despite their use, we still see medical errors 50% of the time. Medio is a process, and we utilize ID cards that are then kept with your insurance cards and driver's licenses so that it's available and portable. And within seconds, a QR code can be scanned that essentially brings you to the table to provide clarity in specific terms we need so that we can provide the right level of care for you without any medical errors.
Medio is an innovative solution to solve the problem of undesired or incomplete care. Medio tells me as a physician exactly what the patient wants in a critical situation, quickly, clearly, and easily. For payers, their goal is to ensure members receive high-quality care concordant with their wishes, and Medio helps to make that possible.
As a palliative care physician, I know exactly what happens when the patient's goals of care are not established early or clearly enough: miscommunication. Medio helps to solve this problem by offering patients the power to speak in their own voice about the care that they want before a serious emergency or critical illness. My mission as a palliative care physician is to make sure that I provide the right care for the patient that is aligned with their wishes. Medio helps me to do this better than any other tool that I've seen in my career.
Advanced care planning has become a crucial quality metric in hospital medicine, and Medio is the most effective and efficient way to deliver advanced care plans to achieve excellence in this metric. Medio simultaneously reduces medical errors, optimizes patient safety, preserves patient preferences, and informs family members and healthcare professionals.
Medical error results in tremendous risk to patients, healthcare professionals, and systems, because the system is not always optimized for patient safety. Medio is a solution to that problem, because Medio provides instant and clear communication directly from the patient to healthcare professionals, to the family, and to the system. In my 20+ years of practice, it's one of the best tools I've ever seen for risk reduction.
And so now I want to introduce to you our final speaker for today, and I know that you're not going to regret when he comes up. Today we're going to be hearing from Pastor Corey Kennard, pastor of Amplify Christian Church, and he's also the director of patient experience at Ascension Street John's Hospital, St. John's Hospital. So without further ado, Corey, if you'll come and join me on the stage. You guys give him a great welcome.
I like the introduction music there, to pump that up a little bit more. Good afternoon, evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you here today, some friends and maybe some foes, but it's good to see everybody in the room. How many of you have either heard me speak before or never heard me speak before? Raise your hand. All right, let's get started. It is definitely a pleasure. I want to just definitely dedicate this to my good friend, the late, great Dr. Richard Payne, who, if it was not for him, I would not be here today. So standing before you. So I appreciate that. He is absolutely awesome. just a wonderful spirit. I want us to get started. I want to just get you going today so that you can do whatever you want to do for the rest of the evening. So I'm going to try to get out of your way as soon as possible. I had one opening, and I'm going to skip past that opening because I'm going to use another one. There was a woman who was about 80 years of age, and she actually was married 4 times. She was on her 4th husband. Okay, so the first husband that she married was a banker. The second husband that she married was a circus ringmaster. The third husband that she married was a pastor. And the 4th husband was a funeral director. So this woman was being interviewed, and she was asked, these 4 gentlemen were so different. Why did you marry a banker, a circus ringmaster, a pastor, and a funeral director? She said, it's as simple as this. I married 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. So, let's go. Let's go ahead and make it happen. All right, that's the disclosure statement. So this was my other one. We're going to go right past this. Don't worry about that one. All right, so the human experience is, and I call it the human experience, not the patient experience, but it's the human experience. And the human experience in and of itself is this definition as indicated by the Barrow Institute. I absolutely love it. The sum of all interactions shaped by an organization's culture that influence patient perceptions across the continuum of care. This is a very important definition for us to have as we go through this process. As you know, the title of this is the human experience. It's required. And so without that, there's no need to apply. There's no need to do anything else if we do not put the human experience at the forefront. And so as we go through this, I want us to see here that the goal is this. For most patients, the goal of the human experience is not to make people happy. It's not what it's for. The goal is to reduce the suffering of patients. That's why we do what we do. We cannot make everybody happy, but we can definitely help to reduce the suffering. How many of you agree with that? All right, good, all right. I didn't say raise your hand or clap, but okay, that's fine. All right, so how many of you know nobody wakes up in the morning expecting to end up in anybody's care in a hospital or in hospice or in palliative care? Nobody gets up in the morning expecting to do that. Like, I really want to end up in somebody's ER. Nobody does that. And so we have to understand that when that happens, this is a great disruption when it comes down to a person's life and what they do. Because many people, they're going to work, minding their own business. They may end up in an accident. They may end up in a situation where they start having chest pains and they fall into a state where they need emergency care. And we have to be mindful of the fact that people do not want to be in our care. They have to, and we're glad that they do come to us when they need health care, but they don't want to be there. They don't want to do that. And so with that being said, many people are impacted with the severe news, maybe a devastating poor prognosis, a diagnosis that they cannot fathom. They didn't know that this was going to happen. How many of you have experienced someone in your life, or even you, who's been in a situation where you got this bad news and it impacted your entire life? For those who heard me before, I love telling this particular story. I saw the hand in the back. Thank you for that. For those of you who heard me speak before, I always use this illustration because it's important for us to know this, that there is a difference between cable and dish. And the reason why I say that is because I used to have Dish. I used to have the Dish network. And if you are familiar with satellites and how they work, they don't work so well when it's storming outside. Right? They don't work so well when it's gloomy and when that satellite cannot hit that dish in the right way. And so what happens is that you can lose what you're watching. You can lose the ability to see what you want to see. And the same thing happens to us when we hear devastating news. And I don't know if you have a television like this, but what happened to me was that I was watching one of my favorite movies, Dish Network, and a storm came along. And when that storm came along, it knocked out my signal. And so this is what I saw. Right in the middle of the movie, right in the good part. I mean, it was a great part. I was anticipating what was getting ready to happen in this movie, and all of a sudden the storm came and the screen got fuzzy. Did I tell you that I was watching my favorite movie? And the storm came and things got fuzzy. This is what I saw on the screen. Then all of a sudden, the screen went black. This is what happens in people's lives when they get the news about something that's devastating, hurtful, and harmful. And they find themselves in a position of not being able to see clearly. So their screen goes black. The storm subsided, and I had an opportunity to see something else that came upon my screen. It wasn't the movie that I was watching, but it was simply this phrase: searching for a signal. Many people are searching for a signal when they get devastating news and come into our care. Many people are searching for their hope. They look for it through their spirituality. They look for it through their friends and their loved ones, but they're searching for a signal of hope, a signal of connection to humanity from the ones who are taking care of them. They're searching for a signal. When we think about this, I was reminded of another one of my favorite movies, Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who. And Horton gives great wisdom for us in healthcare. Great wisdom, right? Because Horton says that there's a tiny person on that speck that needs my help. There's a person in a place where you don't think a person exists. Horton was thinking about that person. He knew that that person was there, and he wanted to connect with that person who was on that dust cloud. And those people, if they were people, I don't know what they were, that were on the dust cloud. Okay? And so the first key is that he acknowledges that a person exists when others don't see that person. That's what Horton acknowledged. So there's a person here. Everybody else was saying, no, you're crazy, you're out of your mind. No, there's a person here. And we have to say that to ourselves, and we have to remind our coworkers every single day. We have to remind our administrators, which I'm one of, every single day, that it's important to know that there's a person at the end of our care. Then, secondly, in an effort to get the rest of the world to acknowledge them, the people on this dust cloud, Horton encourages them to scream, to yell out as loud as they can, "We are here. We are here, we are here, we are here." How many of you have seen this movie? All right, you can raise your hand with confidence. It's okay. So, we are here, we are here, we are here. And this is exactly what our patients are screaming. They're screaming out at us, "We are here, we are here, we are here." Now, the question you may be asking is this: is this a scary scream, like the people had in the Scream movie? And I can say, not quite, but close. Because when we think about it, there are 3 silent screams that I want to tell you about today that are very important for us to know that our patients are screaming at us every time we see them, and we don't hear it. 3 silent screams. Well, the first one is this. You're taking notes. He's taking notes right. He's getting ready too. First is this. I want to be understood. This is what patients are saying to us. They say, I want to be understood. What does that look like? What does that mean? Well, when it comes down to it, it comes down to a bunch of I am statements. People want to say to us, they're screaming out, I am. A mother, a father, a brother, sister, a friend, a lover, a neighbor, a teacher, a leader, a scholar, all of these things, a person of faith, a human. This is what they're screaming out. And they want us to understand that aspect of them. Not just the sickness, not just the illness, not just the disease, but they want us to understand them as a human being, as a person. And they're saying, I am more than what you see here. Unfortunately, I've been plucked out of my community and put in your care, but I'm so much more than this. They're screaming this, but oftentimes we don't hear it. Why? Because we see that, but they want us to know that. They want us to know that they are a person who enjoys life. They are a person who has family, who has friends, who has people who they love around them, and we never see the picture of them being in that state. This is one reason why I always ask family members, patients who are in our care who are struggling, to provide us with the picture that's on your right. Give us a photo so that every time we walk into that room, we know who we're really caring for. Every time we step foot in that room, we understand that this is a person who has a life. And they're not just in the hospital in some hospital gown, right? Which brings me to this point that hospitals, hospices, palliative care, all these things can feel like prisons to people, right? Because in prison, there's prison numbers. In hospitals, there are medical record numbers. Prisons, there are visiting hours. In hospitals, there are visiting hours. In prison, everybody wears the same uniform. In hospitals, everybody wears the same uniform, that gown that only covers up half of them, and when they turn around, I understand why they call it the ICU. No, all right, so some of you will get that when you go home on the plane. You'll just burst out laughing, and then, anyway. All right, so we have to understand the experience that people feel. We strip people of everything they have. I mean, think about it. You come in, you have your rings on, your watches, jewelry, what you wanted to wear. We take that away from everybody that comes into our presence. And they want to know, do you see me as a person? Because I look just like, or I'm dressed just like the person in the next room that you're taking care of as well. Do you see, is there anything different about me that you see? And this is why it's important for us to understand the person, the human being. And so when people are in our care, they feel, left out. There's no I in team, right? The old adage, right? There's a me in there, but there's no I in team. So people feel left out. They feel alone, disconnected from everybody who they truly love. How many know you could be in the community and doing all sorts of things, but get sick and watch how many people come and visit you? Get sick and see if all those people who you spent that time with are going to be rushing into the facility where you may be to check on you. A lot of times it doesn't happen for people, and they feel alone. This is why we need to connect with them. And also, they feel angry and jealous. How many of you been that girl on the right? Just watching everybody have a good time, and here you are, stuck. And so this is a reality. And so with us, what do we look for? In the patient's chart, what's the first thing that we look for? I ask this question to all the groups that I generally talk to, and Usually if it's physicians in the room and nurses, they'll say, well, we'll check on the diagnosis. We'll see, what was the reason for admission and all that. And that's absolutely great. But I need somebody in this room, and I'm putting it out there. I'm giving it to you. I need somebody to create. Remember MySpace? BJ, you remember MySpace? Barely. Okay. You're not that old, man. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, he looks good, though. But anyway, it's important for us to create what I call a MySpace in the medical record for patients. And it should be one of the first places that we go to find out all of the details about that patient's life. I'm not just talking about the FIN page, about who exactly is the emergency contact. I get all that. Where the address of the patient. I get all that. I don't even care about the address. I don't care where they live. But we spend a lot of time putting that stuff in, but give me something that helps me to identify who this person is and who they are in life. And so remember that the next time you're checking a patient's chart, find a little bit more about them before you move forward. Because this creates the tension between the patient and the person. There's a lot of tension here between the patient and the person. The patient is saying, I want you to see me as a person. And we're telling the person, I just only see you as the patient. And there's a struggle. And it causes stress. It causes anxiety when we look at this. And so, in order for a person to be understood, we cannot alleviate this tension until we get to the point of understanding and respecting culture and cultural diversity. This is key. Right? Culture is comprised of beliefs about reality, how people should interact with one another, what they know about the world. Everybody doesn't know what you know. Everybody doesn't think the way that you think. Everybody doesn't act the way that you act. Somebody say, thank goodness. So that's important for us to know, and it's reflected in their religious status. It's reflected in their morals and their customs and even politics and technologies and survival strategies. There are people and cultures that have survival strategies that some of us in this room don't have to have. But we need to recognize those things. That's important. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about faith in a moment, because a lot of us don't like to talk about this faith subject. But to be honest, and I was reading the Gallup poll, it said 47% of Americans are religious, but 33% are spiritual. That puts us at an 80% clip of people who have some form or level of belief in a higher power. 80%. 8 out of 10 people that you may be caring for, we may be ignoring a very important part of their personhood and who they are, which creates tension. I know we don't like to talk about it, but guess what? It's a part of about 80% of our patients' lives, and we need to pay more attention to it. And so culture is akin to being the person observed through a one-way mirror. Right? Everything we see is from our own perspective. This is how we view the world. This is how we see the world, how we were brought up, how we think people should act. People need to be more dignified when they lose their loved ones. There's no way I would just fall out all over the hospital. There's no way I would punch a wall. There's no way. You don't know. But also, you come maybe from a different culture and a different background. So before you call security, think about that for a moment. Somebody can clap on that one. That's a good one. All right. So those of you who didn't clap, I'm calling security. No, so it's only when we join the observed on the other side that it is possible to see ourselves and others clearly. But getting to the other side of the glass is not easy. It's not easy to kind of lay down your cultural beliefs in order to empathize or connect with the person from their cultural perspective. It's not easy. It takes practice, right? You don't just get there overnight. You have to intentionally think about doing this. And so, not moving here. Oh, here we go. All right. So cultural diversity. This is something that we all fall into in this room. There's a lot of diversity in this room. A lot of diversity. Look at your tables, a lot of diversity. Whether you know it or not, you may even look like someone else from an exterior standpoint, but be very different from them from a cultural standpoint. But unless we take the time to know and to get to know people, we won't understand that. So you ought to find a little bit out about the people that you're sitting with right now and connect with them a little bit more. This term is used to describe differences in ethnic or racial classifications. But I want to get to that bottom part. It says, there are many factors that distinguish one group or individual from another. And the reason why I say individual is because we cannot lump all people into one category. Whether it's religious, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, you cannot look at somebody and just lump them in with who you think they should be lumped in with. But we do that. We get ready. We anticipate based upon our own personal prejudgments. So what's the next screen? Okay, Ghostface. There we go. What's the next screen? I want to understand. This is what patients are screaming out as. Not only do they want to be understood, but they're saying, I want to understand. What do they want to understand? They want to understand, this is where culturally appropriate communication comes about, because everybody doesn't understand our, what I call hospitalese, right? Our own language. We have our own language in hospitals, right? In healthcare, in hospice, and palliative care, we have our language. And we think that everybody speaks that language. That's like when we in America who speak English go to another country and we get mad because they don't speak English. They ought to know English so I can find my way around. Well, you're in a different country where the English language is not the dominant language. I'm sorry, but that's a fact. We have to stop being so arrogant in our approach, thinking that everybody knows what we're talking about. I know we have some well-educated people in the room. I get that. But let me tell you something. If somebody's sick and they're ill, they don't care how much, you can speak on an educated level. They want you to be able to connect with them and appropriately communicate with them, right? So, communicate, and then communicate, right? Explain in a way that patients can understand, because they want to understand. That's a silent scream. Where's the plan of care? What is expected outcomes? Tests and procedures, medications and side effects, plain language. I work in a health system where we have worked really hard on letting people know the side effects of their medication. But why is that a difficult thing? Just communicate with people and let them know what's going on. This is important to them. Yeah, you've done it 1,000 times, but do it 1,001 and do it well, because people are looking for that. They're anticipating that. So, culturally diverse communication keys, as you can see on the screen. I'm just going to say the first one. Information is exchanged and understood through ethnic and cultural lenses. This is how people understand. This is how we watch movies. This is how we understand life. This is how we watch politics and watch what's going on in the world. It's through our own cultural lenses. That's why some people like certain stations more than they like others, because it speaks to them from their own cultural understanding or what they've been through. Now, it's important to know that we need to avoid stereotyping. That's a key in this as well. And so when we communicate, we need to try to make sure that we are connecting with people in the best way possible. And so with that being said, so I'm going to move along here, because I need about 5 more minutes too, because they took an extra 5 minutes. But anyway, BIPOC communities are disproportionately affected by inadequate communication. There's a lot of unmet needs as it relates to communication, right? African Americans, I'll speak specifically about that. African Americans are more likely to report absent or problematic communication. They're more likely to promote or talk about problems with being informed. They're also wanting to discuss preferences for end-of-life care, but not having done so in the past. So this could be a fresh approach. We shouldn't approach people like they automatically know what we're talking about. But people do want to know. They do want, but we go so many times not meeting their needs. Things to know as well is that family structures may be matriarchal. Now, we all think that this is the case, but let me tell you something. I can remember when my former wife and I, when we would go to take our kids to health care, to the hospital, or to the doctor, who do you think they looked at when they were talking? So say it out loud. Yeah, yep, you got it. You got it. And I was like, I am here, I am here, I am here. But they focused on my wife more than me. Now, that might have been a good thing. but what I'm saying is we can't assume. We need to make sure that we're talking to all parties involved. When you walk into a room and there are family members there, acknowledge the family members. Please acknowledge the family members and find out who's there before you just start going in to what's happening. I know you've done it. You don't have to raise your hand on that one. But I know we've done it. I've done it. Spiritual beliefs may influence decisions. Once again, we get back to the 80%. You can look that up yourself on Google. 80% of people that you deal with will have some level or form of spiritual connection or beliefs. It's good to find out what that is and maybe do some research on how their beliefs may impact the care that we're providing. Now, how to become a culturally effective communicator. That first one is just, the first bullet point is the key. Listen, listen, listen. Listen to what people are saying. Listen to them. Understand what they're saying. And then, going down the highlighted portion, explore the spiritual beliefs and practices in coping and making decisions that that person may have, so that you're armed with those things going in. Not in an arrogant way, but in an agreement. Being connected to them, understanding. You don't have to agree with them, but you can understand where they're coming from. And then mobilize additional sources of support. This is where chaplains, how many chaplains are in the room? All right, okay. One. Okay, so go call a chaplain and make sure that you connect with them. Okay, ask them why they weren't here, first of all. And then connect with them and make sure that you are providing those additional resources. I'm not asking you to cover all the spiritual bases, but what I'm asking you to do is make sure that you get those additional resources. Social workers, how many social workers we have in the room? All right, case managers. All right, so a few, wow. How many doctors in the room? Physicians. All right, how many nurses? All right, I think the nurses got you. All right. So, somebody clapped on that. I don't know why, but somebody clapped. Anyway, so, all right. So, and then find out. Here's the key. Find out what matters most to the patient, please. I'm begging you. Find out what matters most to the patient. Identify what gives that patient meaning. Use this information to present news in context of their belief system. And then I want to go through this last one, because you probably want to know, what is that? Throw a pool party. What are we talking about? Well, I have the blessing of being able to oversee an end-of-life team at our hospital. These are death doulas who do an amazing job with our patients. And there was a patient just last week, this is why I threw this one in, just last week, who loved to swim, but she was dying. She was near the end of life, And she had been in our care for a few weeks, and she wanted to just touch the water one last time. So what do? We use the therapy pool, right? We use the therapy pool. We got her to the pool. We put her in the water. And I'm telling you, for those moments, there was sheer ecstasy and joy in this patient that was dying. But she had a last opportunity to take that final swim, that final wade in the water. And it was beautiful. She passed away a couple days later. But guess what? We thought outside of the box. We got her, or gave her that opportunity to experience the water one more time. That's what she wanted. Are you asking your patients what matters most to them? Are you finding out those essential things that you can maybe bring into the room for them, or people that they need to be connected with? Think outside of the box. Stop telling people they can't visit because they're not family. Why? Because in many communities, there are people who are closer to that patient who are not blood family or blood relatives than their family. So we're saying, well, family only. And we may march a brother or sister into that room who that patient hasn't talked with, who they don't want to talk to. But we're saying, here's your family. And we're doing more harm than we are good. So we need to think about that and really practice that aspect. And so I want to go to this next one. Okay, what's the final screen? Here's the final one, all right? It's the last time you're going to see that. Here's the final. I want to be heard. Patients are screaming out at us, I want to be heard. And so with this, the question is, are we really listening? Are we really listening to our patients? Are we listening to how they want to be addressed? Okay? I know it's a nice thing, but please stop calling every elderly woman sweetie. They may not like that. But we do it because it makes us feel good. And we think we're being respectful, so I get that. But everybody doesn't want to be called that. Go into a room, you're talking to an older gentleman, hello, darling, how are you today? I don't know you. But can you ask me how I want to be addressed? That's important. And so don't take it for granted that you can just say and label somebody with what you feel comfortable with. That may make them feel uncomfortable, but guess what? They won't tell you most of the time because they're vulnerable, they're in your care, and they don't want to upset you. I just want to tell you that. They don't want to upset you because they don't know if you get mad, they may not get the quality care that they desire and want. Also, who visits? That's the other thing. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever asked the patient, who has ever asked the patient whether or not they wanted visitors? Okay? Well, a few people in the room. Right. Most of us don't. We just assume that they do. Some people are in the hospital and it's a great getaway. Right? They get a chance to be alone and watch what they want to watch on TV, without somebody changing the channel or whatever, or being bothered and listening to Uncle Jack talking all day. They don't want to do that. So we need to ask them whether or not they want visitors. That's important. Their questions, are we listening to their questions? And their faith perspectives and beliefs, are we listening to them? This survey, and this is I call this my Rich Payne slide here. This goes back, this is Rich Payne. He always presented, I love this slide, and he always presented it. But he talked about this, and I kept those highlighted there because right there, those things that are highlighted in yellow are things that have nothing to do with medicine, that patients want and desire. At peace spiritually, not being a burden, things settled with family, finances in order, visits from family and friends, knowing how to say goodbye. These are all things that they want that we can't have them pick this up at the pharmacy. It's totally different, right? So that's important. Did you know that there are 5 areas of spiritual importance to patients facing serious illness and end of life? Patients have a need for, remember, 80%. Patients have a need for belonging and relationship, to explore the meaning of one's life, to explore the meaning of one's suffering and death, for reconciliation and for hope. These are 5 essential things that spiritual people, 80% of the people you may be caring for, may have a desire to have 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of these dealt with. And so research documents that many patients have spiritual beliefs that influence their medical decisions, and that a majority of patients with or without such beliefs would want their physicians to ask about their beliefs if they were gravely ill. Just ask. Just ask. That's what people are saying. Additionally, in a study in the Journal of General Internal Medicine, patients who had conversations about religion and spirituality, 80% of the people, right, with hospital personnel were the most satisfied with their overall care, just because somebody asked a question, right? The impact of the patient's voice is key here, right? What matters most to them. 83% of respondents wanted physicians to ask about or spiritual beliefs in at least some circumstances when they were seriously ill. And among those who wanted to discuss spirituality, the most important reason for discussion was desire for physician-patient understanding, 87%. And then also, they believed that this type of conversation would allow their physician to encourage realistic hope, 67%, giving appropriate medical advice, and then also adjust medical treatment as necessary according to their beliefs. These are important things to understand. So, spirituality, why is it important? It builds trust. It builds trust. Say that with me. It builds. All right. Those who didn't say it, I'll see you in a minute. All right. Spirituality can be one of the most important factors that has shaped the culture and essence of a dying patient's life. Therefore, listening to the patient when it comes to their spiritual life can go a long way in building trust. A long way. Right? This guy said this statement. He said, "Trust is a human-to-human experience, not a patient-to-healthcare worker experience. It's a human-to-human experience. We are humans in this room who have a skill base to care for people. They are humans who come into our care seeking our skill base, but wanting to receive that from other human beings." So that's important. This guy goes on to say, you don't have to believe what the patient believes. Just make the patient believe that what they believe is important to you as it relates to their care. Okay? That's all they want to know. Is it important to you? Is it important enough for you to bring somebody in to actually connect with them? And you can say that to them. You know what? I'm here to care for you physically, but spiritually, I notice that you're a person of faith, and I want to, with your permission, bring in one of our spiritual care providers who can help you along that journey as I care for you physically. It's a great way of doing that. It's a great way of doing it. And so, finally, I want to go into just briefly how we can impact faith communities as it relates to healthcare. We can begin by delivering educational programs. There are people in this room right now who are actually doing this. You need to find out who they are and connect with them. But they're actually doing this because faith communities are a great place for us to educate people on healthcare. And so healthcare partnerships are key in providing culturally sensitive resources that are available to assist the seriously ill and dying, as well as opportunities to improve the congregation's ability to address issues related to death and dying. I'm blessed to be able to lead a congregation, and I help to inform them of these types of things, but all pastors or faith leaders are not connected with healthcare. in the way that I am. So it's important for us to go out into the community and help to educate. And also nurturing skill development is one of the things. We can help congregations establish programs to help members develop the skills within the congregation to carry out some of the things that we want to see. Also, just a few more things here, advocacy. We need to assist faith leaders. How many faith leaders are in the room right now? Any faith leaders in the room? Okay, all right, a couple hands, you're kind of shy. But anyway, I love you. Anyway, so assist faith leaders in becoming knowledgeable enough to join the circle of care. How many times have we excluded faith leaders from the process? This is something that Rich Payne and I were working on before his death, and so it's hard for me to even say it. But it's like, we were looking at traveling the country as a pastor and a physician and talking to the two most important people in a patient's life when it comes to decision making, and that is their pastor or faith leader and physician. And we need to get the two on the same page. We need to say it's okay for us to talk, because physicians oftentimes say, I'm not really into that faith thing when it comes to what I know. This is what I know. This is medically factual, and this is what I know. And then we have faith leaders that are saying, forget what the doctor said. We're going to believe in God or higher power in terms of how we can get healed and get you out of here and get you back to church or whatever the case may be. So there's tension there. We need to kill that tension by working together, because both are important as it relates to that patient. So we need to educate faith leaders so that they can be more on the advocate side in working with us and with that patient when they're in our care. And also development of rituals. Culturally sensitive rituals in the hospital or hospice care are important as it relates to patients. Things that they value, rituals that value in death what the seriously ill and dying valued in life. Are we giving them in death what they valued in life? We must find out what they valued in life and then give that to them even in the dying process. If it's having their favorite plant, they love this plant and they love watering this plant, well, bring the doggone plant to the room and allow them to see the plant. Allow them to experience that. That's important. Okay? Finally, I thought it was the last one. Okay, so facilitating support programs. You also want to make sure that we are putting the faith community is a natural and ideal place for healthcare professionals to facilitate support groups. Go out to the community and provide support groups. Take it to the streets, as I say. Take it to the streets. Go to the places where people are congregating, where they feel comfortable. They're not coming to your hospice facility for a support group. They're not coming to your hospital. They're not coming. But if you go where they are, it can make a difference. And then also revealing the use of community resources, making sure faith community represents a large number of individuals. A congregation can be a key conduit for information about the resources that are available in the community for the community. So if you got some things that are happening in the community and you're wondering why people are not using them, you're wondering why people are not picking up on what you're putting down, because you're not putting it down in the right place. Okay, go ahead. I like that. All right. As we say in the church, put a praise right there. All right, so 2 questions and then I'm done. 2 questions and 1 story, then I'm done. 2 questions, 1 story, then I got to close, then I'm done. No. So 2 questions every clinician must ask. These 2 questions: why and how? Why and how? Why have I encountered this person at this point in my life? Why? Why is this patient here? Why is this person here in my care? Right? Why did I acquire the skills to help them? Why did I go to school? Why did I spend the money? Why am I in debt? And I'm not feeling good about this. So why and why did I go into this profession? What's the reason why you went into this profession? And then how? How can I personally help them through this experience? Do I call a chaplain? Call and connect them with a family member, a friend, whatever the case may be. Why and how? We got to answer these two questions every time we encounter a patient. And so, finally, I get to the fish story and then I'm done. So this story is a little fishy. But it's one where, when we talk about the screams, the silent screams, this is where the title or those phrases came from for me, the silent screams. There was a person who owned an exotic fish collection. He had a state-of-the-art fish tank. I mean, it was just top of the line, thousands and thousands of dollars he spent on this. And he had a mechanism that helped to keep the water at the right temperature for these exotic fish. So you couldn't just run the, regular water from the faucet and just everything would be fine and the fish will live. No, that wasn't going to happen. So the temperature had to be regulated, it had to be clean. It was just really intense. And so he loved this fish collection. This person went away on a trip one day, and he went away for a couple of weeks. Everything was automated. He thought everything was good. He had done this before, so everything was good. But then he came back home this particular time. He saw all of his fish floating at the top of the fish tank, dead, gone. And he saw that the water was hot. The regulator had malfunctioned, and all of the fish died because of the unbearable hot temperature of the water. So he sat down in front of this fish tank and he began to cry. And he asked himself this question: when the water got hot, did they scream? Did they scream out for help, but nobody heard them? Did they scream for him to, in their own fishy way, to make sure that the water didn't get any hotter, but he wasn't there? And so it became overwhelming. The fish died, but this question was, did they scream? And were the screams, because no one was there, were the screams silent? I have to ask you that question today when it comes to your patients. When it comes to those who you're caring for, when it comes to those who are seeking a human being to connect with them and to love them in a special way as it relates to health care, the question is, do you hear them screaming? That's the question that we have to walk away with today. Do we hear our patients screaming? I want to be understood, I want to understand, and I want to be heard. Thank you.